My boyfriend's fiancé came to find me. Philip said you're the cheapest woman he's ever played with. Now that I've seen you, you really do look like trash. That's when I finally understood. During the 5 years I'd spent dreaming of marriage, my boyfriend had been planning a wedding with someone else. At my birthday party, I took the initiative to propose to Philip. Philip, let's get married. Philip froze for 2 seconds. Today's your birthday, let's not talk about this now. Then when will we talk about it? We'd been together for 5 years. Everyone said he loved me to death. But when it came to marriage, he always avoided the topic. Philip, I took a deep breath. I just want a clear answer. Have you ever thought about marrying me? The room fell silent. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, I stared at Philip intently. And he stayed quiet. After a long pause, Philip leaned back slightly in his chair. Tiffany, in families like ours, marriage is about matching status. I don't have a choice. He leaned forward, his tone soft and affectionate. But as long as you behave, we can keep things the way they are. My chest tightened. So, what does these 5 years mean to you? Weren't we dating? Philip lit a cigarette, his eyes clear but distant. Yes and no. You're the only girlfriend I've ever publicly acknowledged. I thought I understood, but I couldn't help clinging to one last shred of hope. And then? There's no then. In other words, he'd loved me. I was his girlfriend. And that was all. My hands, hidden under the table, dug into my palms to keep from crying. So you never planned to marry me? He sighed. I'm sorry. I pushed away the hand he reached out to comfort me with. After a few tries, his patience wore thin, and he frowned. Tiffany, don't push it. This is how things work in our circle. Nobody's an exception. Fine. I looked up at him. Then I won't push it anymore. Philip, let's end this. I walked out of the venue. Philip didn't follow me. I knew his family was wealthy, but I didn't know exactly how wealthy. During our relationship, I tried to split expenses 40/60ths, even if I couldn't do it equally. I wasn't after his money. I just wanted his lifetime. Philip was different from other second-generation heirs. He knew what he wanted and often accommodated me. He was willing to stay in a rented apartment with me, eat cheap food, and even wear the t-shirt I gave him until it was misshapen. The bracelet he never took off was handmade by me. Honestly, I'd secretly fantasized about our wedding for a long time. It didn't have to be extravagant, but it had to be warm. There'd be a beautiful bouquet, friends and family as witnesses, and Philip. Philip, who would get red-eyed and look like a sad puppy when wronged. Philip. But today, that dream was shattered by his own hands. Back at the apartment, I began packing. There wasn't much to take. Just some clothes and a few diaries. 5 years, over 1,000 days and nights. Reduced to a few written pages. As I stepped out the door, I ran into Philip. He grabbed my suitcase. Where are you going? I tried to keep calm. Breaking up. I don't agree. Philip gripped my wrist tightly. You know I still love you. I don't know that. The emotions I'd held back for so long finally broke free. So your idea of love is keeping me by your side without status or security? You're single now, you could tell the world I'm your girlfriend. But what happens if your family arranges a marriage for you someday? I looked at him coldly. Would you keep me on the side as your mistress then? Philip sighed, still holding my hand. Tiffany, I don't have a choice. Those 4 words absolved him of all responsibility. He had no choice. So he had to hide me in the shadows. Enjoy his family's power while claiming to love me. I pushed his hand away. But Philip, I do have a choice. Swallowing the pain in my heart, I said. We're done. That night, I checked into a hotel. My phone rang incessantly, it was Philip. The endless calls were maddening. Eventually, I yanked out the SIM card and threw it in the trash. Breaking up with Philip meant I'd have to change my entire life. I didn't have much family, or many friends. Besides painting, my life had revolved around Philip. Lying awake late into the night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, memories of us came flooding back. In college, he lit up the night sky with fireworks to confess to me. I love Tiffany. Direct and bold. Once, during a mountain hike, I got lost. Philip found me, wrapped me in his jacket, and carried me down the trail, despite the cold. Suddenly, a knock on the door interrupted my thoughts. Miss Tiffany? A woman's voice came from outside, soft but clear. I'm Philip's fiancé. Can we talk? Fiancé. That word cut through me like a knife. When I opened the door, I caught a faint whiff of an expensive perfume. The woman sized me up, from head to toe, with a mocking gaze. So, you're Tiffany? I felt uncomfortable under her scrutiny. Embarrassed by the unexpected meeting. I was wearing a loose cotton nightgown, my hair messy, and disposable hotel slippers on my feet. She, on the other hand, was impeccably dressed. Her outfit wasn't branded, but it screamed luxury. I'm Philip's fiancée, Zona. We're getting married next month. She smiled as she spoke. Philip told me about you. He said. You're the cheapest woman he's ever played with. You don't take his money or gifts. You're full of a poor girl's stubborn pride, how unique. I froze. Her words, dripping with malice, hit me like a hammer, shattering the spine I had struggled to keep straight. I was curious about what kind of pride you had, she said, pausing with a sneer. Now that I've seen you, you're nothing special. She tossed a card at me. It hit my arm before falling to the ground. There's $100,000 on this card, a reward for your years of free service to Philip. I think that's all you're worth. The arm she hit burned with pain. The bank card lay on the dirty carpet by the door. Just like my shattered dignity. Zona crossed her arms and sneered at me. Pick it up. Don't leave empty-handed after all those years with Philip. I bit my lip hard, bent down stiffly, and reached for the card. Above me, I heard her scoff. So much for your pride. For $100,000, you're willing to throw it all away. As she turned to leave, I grabbed her hair and yanked. Zona screamed as I dragged her to the door. I flung the card back in her face. Is this how Miss Zona measures my worth? I sneered. So this is how cheap a rich girl's dignity is. I let go of her and slammed the door shut. Zona's furious shouting echoed in the hallway. Inside, I leaned stiffly against the door, my hands trembling. It was all just an act. Fiancé. Philip already had a fiancé. So, while I had been joyfully planning our future, he had been secretly preparing a wedding with another woman. That was Philip's version of loving me. A sleepless night. Morning came after a restless night. As I washed up, the reflection in the mirror stared back with swollen eyes and a face lined with exhaustion. I looked utterly worn out. After a quick tidy up, I prepared to head out to find a rental agency. But the moment I stepped out the door, I ran into a neighbor from the room next to mine. Philip stood in his doorway, holding it ajar. Tiffany? He strode towards me, the heavy stench of alcohol clinging to the air around him. From inside his room, a woman's voice called out, Philip. His steps halted abruptly. A moment later, Zona emerged from his room, deliberately hooking her arm around his. With a teasing tone, she pouted, Philip, it's all your fault last night. Look, I've got bruises on my waist. Philip's expression shifted slightly, and his eyes darted toward me, betraying a hint of discomfort. I knew Zona did all this for my benefit, making sure I saw everything. Even the accidental glimpse of the love bites peeking out from beneath her silky nightgown. Philip was a light sleeper and incredibly picky about his accommodations. He would never choose to stay in a budget hotel like this. Snapping out of my thoughts, I turned to leave. But just as I was about to go, Philip grabbed my wrist. Tiffany. He refused to let go, yet seemed at a loss for words. Zona stepped closer, raising an eyebrow with a faint smile. Philip, what's this about? Philip's grip tightened slightly before he eventually let go. Nothing, he replied. Zona chuckled softly, her tone light. Is this a friend of yours, Philip? Don't forget to send her an invitation. Philip hesitated for a moment before taking the invitation Zona handed him and passing it to me. This is my invitation, he said in a low voice. A wave of nausea rolled over me. Disgust rose from the pit of my stomach. Feigning readiness to accept it, I pulled my hand back just as Philip released his grip. The invitation fluttered to the ground. I shot him a cold glance. Do I know Mr. Liu that well? Philip's face darkened. Without another word, I walked toward the stairwell. Behind me, Zona's voice echoed, fading as she spoke, "Let's go. We've got a photo shoot with the wedding photographer today." As I descended half a flight of stairs, I vaguely heard Philip's response. "All right." Memories resurface. My thoughts drifted back to our university days. On Philip's birthday, I had a sudden whim to take couples portraits with him. While changing outfits, I caught sight of a wedding dress displayed in the window. On a whim, we ended up taking a photo, not quite a wedding photo, but close enough. In the photo, as the shutter clicked, I looked at the camera. But Philip was looking at me. By the time I snapped out of it, I had reached the end of the third-floor stairwell. I stiffly walked out of the hotel. The morning sun was warm, a sign of a fresh day beginning. A new start and new challenges. Eventually, I rented a beautifully decorated loft apartment. The downstairs space was perfect for setting up my easel and paints. But just as I settled in, bad news arrived from the magazine I'd been submitting work to. They had suddenly replaced the illustration editor. My sole source of income was gone. After facing rejection from several publishers, I decided to put my artwork online. But no one showed any interest. Except for one comment, from someone with the username Waterwood. "I love your work. When I have money, I'll buy all your paintings." I replied with a smile, "Sure." But my heart ached a little. By dusk, I sat by the floor-to-ceiling window, layering paint onto a canvas in a chaotic mix of colors. My thoughts were just as jumbled as the mess of brushstrokes. My phone rang then, breaking the silence. It was an invitation for an interview from a small company. After hanging up, I tore the messy painting from its frame, crumpled it, and tossed it into the trash. As I turned, my eyes landed on the calendar. June 16th. It was the anniversary of my relationship with Philip. I remembered last year, when he was abroad for work on this day. Late at night, I couldn't help but complain to him over the phone about feeling lonely. And his voice, soft with a smile, came through. "Tiffany, look out the window." He should have been across the ocean. But there he was, standing under the street lamp, looking at me with travel-worn tenderness. Memories, no matter how fleeting, have a way of softening the edges of pain. Pulling myself back to the present, I glanced out the window at the sunset-drenched horizon. June 16th. It was just another Sunday. It was past 10 p.m., and the entire apartment building suddenly lost power. Because of childhood experiences, I'd been afraid of the dark since I was little. My phone battery was under 10%. Rather than sit in the dark all night with a dead phone, I decided to go downstairs to rent a power bank and wait it out at a convenience store. I lived on the third floor, so it was a quick trip down. However, I still overestimated my courage. A pitch-black staircase late at night during a power outage. Everything about it made my legs go weak. Ah! There was water on the steps, and with the dim visibility, I slipped and fell. Pain shot through my left leg like a knife. Someone rushed up from downstairs. "Are you okay?" The beam of a flashlight illuminated half his face, showing delicate and striking features. I didn't recognize him, but he looked familiar, as if I'd seen him in the elevator a couple of times before. He helped me up. "Can you walk?" "I think so." I gritted my teeth and tried stepping forward while holding on to the handrail, but the stabbing pain in my left foot made me falter. He caught me again. "Come on," he said, crouching down slightly. His dark clothing blended into the night. "I'll carry you downstairs." I hesitated for a moment. "Thank you." He carried me downstairs with steady steps. The hand holding the back of my knees was clenched into a fist, gentlemanly avoiding touching me directly. Seeing how much pain I was in, he even hailed a cab and accompanied me to the hospital. On the way there, I learned his name, Sean. At the hospital, Sean helped me out of the cab. However, just as we stepped into the lobby, we ran into two familiar faces. Close to 11 p.m., I found myself face to face with Philip in the hospital lobby. His right hand was lightly pressing against his abdomen, likely another bout of his chronic stomach issues. Zona was trailing behind him. I quickly averted my gaze and leaned on Sean as we struggled toward the lobby. Tiffany. Philip strode over to me. He gave Sean a cold once-over, his expression dark. I thought he was about to make a scene again. Instead, Philip's voice was controlled but simmering with anger as he asked, "What happened to your leg?" I said nothing and tried to move past him, but the sharp pain in my left leg made me stumble. Philip instinctively reached out, but someone was faster. Sean steadied me with a gentle tone. "Careful." He supported me, indicating that I should lean my weight on his arm. Philip wasn't about to let it go and followed us. "Does it hurt?" He frowned. "Let me carry you." "Philip," Zona stepped forward just in time. Gone was her usual arrogance when alone with me, she now clung to Philip's arm with a gentle demeanor. "Let's go home," she urged softly. "Your mother is still waiting for you." She glanced at me with a faint smile that carried a hint of mockery. "Besides, Miss Tiffany has someone with her now. I doubt she wants you around." Philip's face looked grim, but he didn't argue. With Sean's help, I slowly bypassed him. The sound of footsteps faded behind me after a pause. Sean supported me through registration and the doctor's consultation. By the time the examination was done, it was late at night. Thankfully, the doctor said my bones were fine, it was just a severe ankle sprain. He prescribed an ointment and advised rest for a couple of days. Sean helped me out of the consultation room. His hand brushed against my wrist, and it was burning hot. Looking at his flushed face and pale lips, I felt something was wrong. I touched his forehead. "Are you running a fever?" "I'm fine," Sean replied with a smile. "I'll take some medicine when I get back." I dragged him to the nurse's station to check his temperature. Turns out he had known he was feverish but stayed to help me finish my examination. "It's late, and your leg's injured," he said nonchalantly. "You'd have trouble managing alone." "It's no big deal, we're neighbors." In the end, I convinced him to get in for treatment at the hospital. It was well into the night. There weren't many people in the 4-room, just a few scattered here and there. I sat next to Sean, scrolling through my phone. Halfway through the drip, I felt something lean against my shoulder. Sean had fallen asleep, his head resting gently on me. I checked his temperature with the back of my hand. Still hot. Just as I was pulling my hand away, a shadow loomed over me. Looking up, I met Philip's stormy gaze. Who is he? Philip's relentless presence was getting on my nerves. I frowned, unwilling to respond. "Tiffany, did you break up with me because of him?" He sneered, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Is this what they call a seamless transition? My temples throbbed in irritation. I couldn't hold it in anymore and swore loudly. Philip froze. Sean, who had been woken up, also looked stunned. I grasped Sean's hand, intertwining our fingers tightly, and raised them in front of Philip. "You're right. He's my new boyfriend. He's younger than you, better looking, and more capable. Most importantly, he's willing to marry me." I met Philip's gaze with equal sarcasm. "Does this answer satisfy you, Mr. Philip?" Philip frowned, saying nothing. Sean stayed silent, not exposing my lie. After a while, Philip sighed. "Tiffany, don't say things in anger." He crouched down to examine my ankle. "Did you sprain it?" As he spoke, he pulled out 2 tubes of ointment from his pocket. He held my ankle gently, as if about to apply the ointment. "Let go." He loosened his grip slightly. "Stop being stubborn. If you don't apply the medicine quickly, your ankle will swell even more tomorrow." "What does it have to do with you?" "Everything." Philip looked up at me, his eyes full of possessiveness. "I don't agree to the breakup." "You want marriage, right?" "Give me some time. I'll take care of everything, and then I'll marry you." When someone's words reach the height of absurdity, all you can do is laugh. I stared coldly at him. "Philip, who do you think you are? Why would I wait for you to marry me?" "Let go." Philip didn't move. The next moment, Sean, who had quietly removed his 4-needle, suddenly grabbed Philip by the collar. His expression was calm, but his tone was icy. "My girlfriend asked you to let go. Didn't you hear her?" After a 2-second pause, Philip flung Sean's hand away, his gaze scrutinizing both of us. "Girlfriend?" His eyes landed on Sean's cheap white t-shirt, and he chuckled. Your whole outfit costs less than 200 yuan. And you think you're qualified to be her boyfriend? If you're broke, don't try to chase girls. Shut up. Ignoring the searing pain in my left foot, I stepped in front of Sean. Do you seriously believe every relationship revolves around money? I looked up at him, the sarcasm in my eyes unmasked. By that logic, Mr. Philip, you're better suited to paying for love. Every minute of passion, clearly priced. Philip frowned. Tiffany, are you taking this pauper's side? Or are you still mad at me? He seemed to convince himself it was the latter. I've explained it to you before. She and I were just fooling around. Was that marriage certificate really so important? More important than our love? It was. The face I had loved for 5 years was still the same. Yet suddenly, it felt unfamiliar. I stared at him coldly. You still don't understand why I left you. You had the choice not to marry her. I didn't have to marry you either. But you didn't even have the courage to tell me. You wouldn't marry me because you'd choose your family over me. You kept saying you had no choice, but you never gave me one either. You were just cowardly and selfishly planning to waste my entire life. Saying everything that had been bottled up, I felt relieved. Philip, it took me 5 years to figure out one thing. You're a coward. When Sean and I got home, it was already past midnight. Even with his low-grade fever, he insisted on supporting me to my door, waiting until I entered before leaving. The apartment's power had been restored. After washing up, I lay in bed, my thoughts drifting back to Philip's clenched fists and red eyes after my parting words. Yet he didn't argue. By Monday, my ankle had improved, and I could hobble around. I attended the scheduled interview and received an offer that evening. Wanting to thank Sean, I bought a bunch of gifts and went to his place, but his phone was off, and no one answered the door. Feeling worried, I returned to his apartment later that night. This time, I knocked for nearly 10 minutes. The door finally opened. The room was dark, with heavy curtains blocking out the moonlight. The air felt stifling. Sean stood at the doorway, unshaven and bloodshot after 2 days. Sean. I was startled by his appearance. He forced a weak smile. What's up? I brought some gifts to thank you for the other night. It's fine. He interrupted softly and moved to close the door. Something felt off. Panicking, I reached out to stop him. Ah. My fingers got caught in the door. The sharp pain brought tears to my eyes almost instantly. Sean froze, quickly grabbing my wrist. Are you okay? His eyes were filled with guilt. I'm sorry. I stared at the disheveled man before me and asked softly, may I come in and sit for a bit? Sean was silent for a long moment. He eventually stepped aside and turned on the lights. Okay. Sean's home was spotless. So clean, it felt suffocating. Not a speck of dust anywhere. Even the bedspread was perfectly smooth. The floor shone like new. The only exception was the carpet, littered with medicine bottles. Though Sean quickly gathered them up, I caught a glimpse. Citalopram. A medication for treating depression. I frowned. Despite knowing him only briefly, Sean had always struck me as gentle and kind. Could he be struggling with depression? I didn't know how to ask. The sound of running water from the bathroom broke the silence. Sean soon emerged, water droplets still clinging to his face. Sorry. His voice was low and slow, carrying an inexplicable weight. My chest tightened. After a moment's hesitation, I limped over to the carpet and sat down, patting the spot next to me. Care to chat for a while? Sean hesitated before sitting down, maintaining half an arm's distance. From this angle, the night sky outside the window was visible. The moon was full tonight, surrounded by countless stars. We talked for a long time. And I learned about his past. Sean used to be a competitive swimmer. He had participated in national tournaments. His coach once called him the most promising athlete for a world championship. But a year ago, a tragic accident changed everything. Sean suffered an injury that permanently ended his career. Worse still, his parents died in that same accident. They passed away right in front of him. He watched them fight for their lives, only to take their last breaths. Completely powerless. The dual blow of losing both his family and his dreams had utterly crushed him. Sean's eyes were red, his hands trembling as he rested them on his knees. The trembling worsened until I reached out and held them. I wanted to tell him that it was all in the past, but the words wouldn't come. For him, how could it ever truly be in the past? Not knowing what else to say, I held his hands gently until he calmed down. At last, Sean exhaled deeply. "Thank you." First day at work. Everything went smoothly, except for a slight limp in my left leg. The boss wasn't too demanding, and the colleagues were decently friendly. Except the new phone number I just got received a call from Philip. I hung up 5 times in a row. Finally, he stopped calling. After work, I went straight to see Sean. Luckily, he seemed much better today. He even made dinner himself. Sean is a meticulous person, but his cooking skills are abysmal. When I discovered that the fish he was cooking was still swimming in cold water, I sighed and gently pushed him out of the kitchen. "Let me handle it. Honestly, my cooking isn't great either. But it's at least edible." Sean refused to leave and just stood by my side, helping out. He washed some vegetables and cracked a couple of eggs. While I scrambled to stew the fish, I turned my head and caught Sean leaning against the doorframe, watching me. He was wearing light-colored loungewear. His hair, naturally black and silky, softly framed his forehead. The setting sun streamed in through the window, bathing him in a warm glow. It softened his features even more. Sean has a pair of very gentle eyes. Clear and calm. At that moment, he watched me quietly, no intensity, no possessiveness, just pure, gentle observation. He smiled sincerely. "Tiffany," he said, "I think you're a very special person. You make people feel at ease." A shift in the office atmosphere. Today, the vibe at work was different. Everyone seemed to be whispering about something. The moment I arrived, Warm pulled me aside. "Did you hear? Our company got acquired. A new boss is coming any minute now." "Acquired?" "Our company isn't big, barely 20 people, including management. Why would anyone suddenly acquire us?" A bad feeling crept up on me. And soon enough, my suspicion was confirmed. Amid the applause welcoming the new boss, I saw Philip walking in slowly. His gaze locked onto me without hesitation. Intense. Burning. "Tiffany, come to my office," he said. Snapping back to my senses, I returned to my desk. If Mr. Philip has something to say, he can say it here. The office fell into an awkward silence. Warm nudged me under the desk, her eyes signaling, "Are you crazy?" But Philip didn't seem angry. He raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure you want me to say it here?" The tension was palpable. In the end, I relented and followed him. Philip has a streak of madness, he's capable of anything. With everyone whispering behind me, I walked into Philip's office. The sound of the door locking behind me instantly put me on edge. Philip walked up to me, bending slightly to meet my eyes. "Tiffany, come back." His voice was hoarse. "You know I can't live without you." "How many times now?" I stepped back to put some distance between us and rubbed my temples in frustration. "Philip, how many times do I have to tell you it's over? You lied, you were selfish, and you were consumed by possessiveness when we were together. And now you won't let go even after we've broken up. You've erased what little good memories I had of us." I looked up at him. "The way you're acting only makes me more grateful for our breakup." Emotions surged in Philip's eyes, shock, anger, and finally, reluctant resignation. He opened his mouth to speak, but stopped short. In the end, he just gripped my wrist tightly. "Hate me all you want, be angry with me, I don't care. I'm not letting go." As I shook off his hand and turned to leave, he suddenly brought up Sean. "You're rejecting me because of that Sean, aren't you?" Philip's tone was low and menacing as he approached me. "Tiffany, a man with depression, can find 1,000 reasons to." Slap. My hand trembled as I stared at him. "The issues between us have nothing to do with him. Don't make me hate you." Philip lowered his gaze, his expression unreadable. The red mark from my slap stood out on his face. I turned and walked away. "I'll send you my resignation letter." "Philip, if you still want to save face for both of us." "I don't want face." He cut me off, his voice hoarse. I only want you. After leaving Philip's office, my coworkers were still whispering among themselves. Winnie, who was usually the closest to me, leaned over and whispered, Tiffany, do you know the new boss? No, I replied while starting to pack my things. She asked, confused. Resigning. I quickly drafted my resignation letter, gathered my belongings, and left the company. As I was leaving, Philip stood by the doorway, watching. He lit a cigarette. The rising smoke blurred his gaze, before it was scattered by the wind. Just as I stepped out of the company's main entrance, my phone vibrated. It was a text message. The number was painfully familiar, so familiar I could recite it from memory. After you resign, I'll make sure you can't find any job related to art in the city. No one will buy your paintings either. Tiffany, if you don't want to end up washing dishes or sweeping floors just to humiliate yourself, come back to me. Shortly after, a third message arrived. This time, Philip's tone softened. Tiffany, I'm begging you. Please come back. I didn't reply. I simply blocked his number. In these 5 years, if he had truly understood me, he would know one thing. I never look back. Even if the road ahead is rough and bleak. I returned home with my things. My mind was in turmoil. As I opened the door, Mimi, the cat, jumped down from her perch and rubbed against my pant leg. Mimi was a stray Philip and I had adopted together. Philip hated cats, but still let me keep Mimi in the one-bedroom apartment we used to rent. I crouched down to rub Mimi's head, opened a can of food for her, and then went downstairs. After a few knocks, Sean opened the door. The room was as tidy as always, and just as dark. The air felt stifling. After spending time with Sean, we had grown familiar enough that I even kept a pair of my slippers at his place. I changed into them, walked over to the window, and opened it to let in some fresh air. As I turned around, I noticed an empty bottle of sleeping pills on the floor. Sean. I rushed over to pick up the bottle. How many did you take? Sean looked at me and smiled. Don't worry, just 2. Having trouble sleeping lately. That's all. Really? Really. He took the empty bottle from my hand and threw it into the trash. Relax, he said, guessing what was on my mind. I promise, if I ever decide to leave this world, I'll tell you in advance. After all. He paused, and his laugh was faint. You're my only friend in this world. For a brief moment, I wanted to ask him, only a friend? But I didn't. That night, I stayed at Sean's place until late. Once I was sure he was okay, I left for home. For some reason, after returning home, I couldn't stop thinking about Sean's eyes. They were so clear, yet upon closer look, seemed full of tiny, shattered light. As if, at any moment, they might quietly bid farewell to this world. The next morning, I woke up early. After getting ready, I couldn't shake off my concern, so I took Mimi and went downstairs. This time, Sean opened the door quickly. What's this? He asked, staring at Mimi in my arms. I lied. I'm busy job hunting these days. Can you help me take care of her for a while? She's very well behaved. Sean's gaze softened as he reached out to gently rub Mimi's head. Mimi seemed to like him too. The little fluff ball nuzzled against his hand affectionately. Sure, he said. I spent the next few days looking for a job. But Philip was right, no art-related company in this city would hire me. 2 companies even rejected my interview outright upon hearing my name. When Philip said he'd block me entirely, he meant it. But I wouldn't give in. I locked myself in my room and painted, sometimes for an entire day. Then I posted my finished works online. I thought no one would notice them, as usual. But that very night, 2 of my paintings sold. The shipping address was in the next city. To celebrate, I immediately bought some groceries and headed to Sean's place. Sean opened the door with Mimi still in his arms. The little rascal barely gave me a soft meow before curling back up against him. I stroked her head and teased, you little traitor. Falling for someone else so quickly. Sean naturally took the groceries from my hands. You seem happy today? Yeah. I grabbed his sleeve excitedly. My painting sold. Sean set Mimi down and smiled. Really? Congrats. As he turned away, I couldn't help but look at his back. And you? I bit my lip and asked softly, are you feeling better these days? Sean froze for a moment while washing the vegetables. Yeah. He smiled. You come by every day, and Mimi is so clingy. I don't even have time to feel down anymore. I pretended to be upset. Oh, so now I'm annoying you. Before I could finish, Sean chuckled softly. Not annoying. When you're here. I'm always happy. My heart skipped a beat. I wanted to say something but found my throat dry. Sean was wearing a white shirt today, with the sleeves rolled up to his forearms. On the right side of his nape, there was a tiny mole. Just his back alone looked like he had stepped out of a manga as a white shirt boy. Dinner was a joint effort. Sean made a sweet and sour tomato egg stir-fry. I braised ribs and boiled some shrimp. Mimi managed to steal 2 shrimp. To celebrate selling my first painting, Sean even had a drink with me. He didn't seem to hold his liquor well. His face quickly turned red, and his usually gentle gaze became a bit unfocused. Normally, Sean was a person with strong boundaries. But now, he reached out to pinch my cheek and leaned in closer to look at me. Tiffany, he said. You're amazing. There will always be people who can see the soul in every stroke of your paintings. People who resonate with you. One day, many, many people will love you and your work. You'll definitely become an incredible artist. Sean said this while looking at me earnestly. His gaze was as tender as a spring breeze over a still pond, rippling softly but quickly calming again. My heart raced. I asked quietly, do you like it? Like it? Sean smiled. I love your paintings. Just the paintings? I looked up at him and gathered my courage. Sean's smile froze for a moment. Finally, he met my gaze directly. I like the person too. The heat rose. The alcohol coursed through my veins like fire. At some point, I couldn't tell who made the first move. All I could see was Sean's face coming closer. Closer, until I could almost feel his breath. Then the phone rang. The moment broke. Sean abruptly pulled away, and we created some distance. Flustered, I avoided looking at him and fumbled for my phone. It was an unknown number. When I answered, a vaguely familiar female voice came through. Tiffany, you really surprised me. But don't celebrate too soon. Did you think Philip canceling our engagement means he'd marry someone like you? Dream on. She laughed mockingly. Don't think for a second that you'll ever become Mrs. Philip. No matter how much he likes you, you're just a mistress. Are you done? I frowned. Idiot. I hung up. The whole righteous wife act, what a waste of time talking to her at all. The room fell silent again. Sean was fiddling with an empty soda can. I thought back to the interrupted moment earlier, my face feeling hot. Sean peeled an orange and handed me a slice, even removing the white threads carefully. Thanks. Another awkward silence. I broke it by suggesting we stream a movie on the big screen. Sean readily agreed. But just as I set up the screen, my phone vibrated. Philip's message appeared on the projector. Tiffany, I've cancelled the engagement. Sean glanced briefly and then looked away. He stood up. I'll get you a glass of water. The sound of running water came from the kitchen. I quickly typed, I'm getting married. Screw off. Then I blocked the number. Sean soon returned, carrying a glass of warm water with a hint of honey. We silently agreed to change the topic, chatting about art and Mimi the cat. But my phone buzzed again, another unknown number. I hung up, and they called back. Eventually, I just turned off my phone. Sean suddenly asked, your ex? Yeah. The one from the hospital last time? The warmth of the water seeped into my palm. I spoke softly, I was with him for 5 years. Back then, I was ready to marry him. This year, I finally asked him directly in public. That's when he admitted the truth, our families weren't a good match, and he'd never marry me. It was only after we broke up that I found out he already had a fiancée. Sean listened attentively. Actually, what hurt you the most wasn't that he couldn't marry you, was it? It's that he knew how it would end from the start. But he enjoyed the process, letting you chase after something that never existed. Every day you dreamed of marrying him, he was figuring out how to keep you as just a girlfriend. His words hit something deep in my numb heart. I had spent 5 years with Philip. Even now, he stubbornly believed I only cared about marriage. Worse, he still thought that if he broke off his engagement with Zona, I would run back to him. But Sean understood. He looked at me sincerely. It's okay. One day, you'll meet someone who truly cherishes you. I think I already have. Sean abruptly stood, cutting me off. I'm a little tired, Tiffany. I stared at him, stunned. Okay. I'll head home then. The rest of my sentence stayed lodged in my throat. I think I already have. It's you, Sean. When I got home, the moment I reached for the light switch, a hand grabbed mine. Tiffany. Philip's voice was sharp in my ear, tinged with anger. He bit my earlobe, almost as if venting, and asked, "Where were you?" At Sean's place, wasn't it? And what about Mimi? Snapping out of my fear, I kicked him desperately. How did you get in here? Help. He covered my mouth. In the dark, Philip's breath was cold and oppressive. It's late, and you've just come back from Sean's. Mimi's with him now, isn't she? Tiffany, that's the cat we raised together. What gives him the right? I struggled fiercely. Finally, he let go, sighing. His tone softened slightly. I know you're still mad at me. But this time, I've broken off the engagement with Zona. Tiffany, give me more time. I'll convince my family to marry you. I was rude earlier, I'm sorry. Philip turned on the light. He was still in his suit, dark circles under his eyes, looking haggard. Tiffany, I just can't accept us being apart. I looked up at him. I'm really tired tonight. Can we talk about this tomorrow? Philip. He wanted to refuse, but couldn't resist my tone when I said his name. Fine. I'll come pick you up in the morning. I nodded. Once he left, I locked the door and called the police. Officer, someone broke into my house. Philip had guessed the door code. When he grabbed me earlier, I deliberately slipped my diamond ring into his pocket, filing the complaint as burglary. I knew, though, that his family's influence would shield him from any real consequences. And that's exactly what happened. But I wanted to rattle him. After he left the police station, Philip didn't bother me for several days. I didn't follow financial news much, but I heard whispers about tension between two families. Philip had reportedly been put under house arrest by his own family. With him out of the picture, I could finally focus on painting. Each afternoon, Sean would bring Mimi over and cook for me. By the floor-to-ceiling window bathed in sunlight, I carefully filled my canvas with colors and dreams. When I turned around, the kitchen's simple warmth reminded me of life's quieter joys. My painting, Boy and Cat, became a sensation. The boy in the artwork wore a crisp white shirt, his delicate face marked by a small tear-shaped mole at the corner of his eye. He had a pair of white cat ears. The cat nestled in his arms wore a little shirt and tie. It was Sean and Mimi I had painted. The painting's popularity brought me an unexpected surge of 100,000 followers online. Even my older unsold works were snapped up. I stared at the screen in disbelief. Finally, my hard work was being recognized. Sean was the first person I wanted to share the news with. I couldn't even wait for the elevator. Slipping on my slippers, I ran downstairs. But after knocking on his door for a long time, there was no answer. No one picked up when I called either. Excitement quickly gave way to unease. With trembling hands, I entered the door code. The door opened. Darkness. Sean was always tidy, but now the room was a wreck. Shattered glass covered the floor. Yet Mimi was unharmed. The little cat had been locked in the bedroom with fresh litter, food, and water. Sean was curled up on the floor near the couch, trembling. The shadow swallowed him, blurring the edges between him and the night. I was afraid he might disappear altogether. Sean. He didn't respond, staying in the same position. I walked closer and saw his bloodshot eyes and tear-streaked face. Sean had been crying. A pang shot through my chest. I tentatively embraced him. Sean didn't pull away. What's wrong? Let's go to the hospital, okay? He didn't say anything. After a long silence, he stiffly, shakily hugged me back. "Tiffany," he said, his voice cracking, "today is the anniversary of my parents' death. It was my fault. I killed them." That night, Sean finally shared the details of the accident. A year ago, he had been a swimmer on the national team, with a future full of promise. On a drive home with his parents, an argument broke out. Overcome with emotion, Sean lost focus, and the car crashed. In the moment of crisis, Sean instinctively swerved to shield himself. His mother, usually slow to react, was the first to protect him. The crash was devastating. His father, in the back seat, fell silent immediately. His mother, bleeding and fading in and out of consciousness, clung to him desperately. Sean was also gravely injured. He crawled out of the car and found his father unresponsive. His mother, barely alive, weakly begged him to save her. But the car caught fire. The flame spread quickly, accompanied by the stench of gasoline. Sean knew it would explode any second. He fought with all his strength to save her, but couldn't muster enough. The explosion was imminent. He eventually let go of his mother's hand. Just as he managed to stumble a short distance away, an earth-shattering explosion rang out behind him. His parents were engulfed in flames, gone just like that. Sean curled up in the dark as he recounted this part of his past to me. At times, he could hardly breathe, his voice choking into silence. Those clear, spring-like eyes of his were clouded with a lifeless gray. He said, "I was so weak. Weak enough to watch them die in front of me. I couldn't save them. I couldn't save anyone. I shouldn't have survived." I gently hugged him, feeling tears welling up. He had instinctively saved himself during the car accident. He had chosen to let go during the explosion. I didn't know how to judge his actions, it was tied to human nature, far too complex. But one thing I felt sure of. They would have wanted you to live. That night, I stayed at Sean's house, to keep him company. I didn't do anything else, just sat beside him, comforting him softly and holding his hand until it stopped trembling. It wasn't until the early hours of the morning that Sean finally managed to fall asleep. I covered him with a light blanket and began quietly tidying up the room. By the time the room was spotless, the clock pointed to 4 a.m. Exhausted, I curled up on the sofa and fell asleep. When I woke up, the aroma of food filled the house, and I found myself on the bed instead of the sofa. My clothes hadn't been touched. Slipping into my slippers, I got out of bed. When I saw the figure in the kitchen, I let out a sigh of relief. Sean was cooking. Recently, his culinary skills had improved dramatically. The dishes I loved most were now especially delicious when he made them. Sean turned to grab some seasoning and caught sight of me. "You're up?" "Yeah." I carefully studied Sean's expression. It seemed like he'd genuinely started to move on from his grief, and I finally relaxed a little. I told him the good news I hadn't had the chance to share yesterday. Sean stirred the food with a spatula and smiled faintly. "Tiffany, I'm not surprised. Your art will only become more beloved, it really will." Then he added, "You're going to achieve your dream." "And what about you?" I walked to the kitchen door. "What's your dream?" The moment I asked, I regretted it. I must have been half asleep. Sean's dream had always been to swim competitively, a dream he could no longer pursue. Why would I bring it up? Well, I fumbled for a way to change the subject, but Sean suddenly laughed. "My dream now is to see Tiffany achieve hers." The softness in his words hit me straight in the heart. I asked quietly, "Will you stay with me? Stay with me as I chase my dream?" The sound of the spatula tapping against the pan was almost inaudible. Then, he answered, "I will." I heard that Philip had unilaterally called off the engagement, sparking a huge conflict between the two families. It escalated to the point of severing all business ties. Zona's family, being more powerful, retaliated by crushing Philip's family's business, leaving it in shambles. Amid all this, Philip ran away from home and blocked me at my front door. "Tiffany." His face was haggard as he spread his arms toward me. "Can I have a hug? Please? I miss you so much." I stared at him, expressionless. "Get lost." Philip stepped closer. "It's been long enough. Don't you think this has gone far enough?" Let's make up. I've been under so much pressure lately. Even sneaking out to see you now wasn't easy. Zona and I have completely broken off the engagement, Tiffany. I've done all this for you. He reached for my hand. Let's move out tomorrow. End things with that guy downstairs, and we can start fresh. I'll introduce you to my parents, they'll love you. Philip. I frowned at him. Aren't you tired? Philip froze. Don't you think your whole life is just twisted? When I was fully devoted to you, you dragged things out for 5 years and never even considered taking responsibility for me. Now that I don't love you anymore, you're pulling this lovesick act, pestering me to get back together. Do you love me, or are you just unwilling to let go? Did you end things with Zona because you love me or because you're rebelling against your parents' expectations? You're always stuck in the moment, selfish and spineless. Despite everything I said, Philip seemed to latch onto just one thing. Can you honestly say you don't love me anymore? I couldn't be bothered to argue further. I turned to leave. You're delusional. Tiffany. Philip blocked my path again, his eyes bloodshot. I know I was wrong in the past, but can't you give me even a chance to make it right? I can. I looked at him, deadpan. How about you kneel and apologize first? Philip's eyes burned red as he stared at me. He seemed to be making some kind of decision. After a long pause, he asked in a low voice, if I kneel, will you come back to me? For a moment, I thought I misheard him. Looking up, I saw Philip staring at me intently. If I kneel, will you? I looked at him, disappointed. If you kneel, you'll destroy even the little bit of dignity those 5 years left behind. Honestly, I don't regret being with you. It was part of my life experience. I loved wholeheartedly, and I can take the loss. But, Philip, if you kneel to win back someone who doesn't love you anymore, I'll lose all respect for you. And for myself. Forever loving someone so pathetic. I met his gaze coldly. Stop playing out this melodramatic obsession. You know me well enough, I've truly moved on. Let's leave each other with some dignity. Philip, don't make me lose respect for you. This time, I turned and walked away. Philip didn't stop me. But as I reached the elevator, I heard him call out softly, do you really like Sean now? Yes. The elevator doors opened, and I saw Sean inside. He was holding Mimi in one arm and carrying groceries with the other. He smiled at me. Come to my place? I'm making your favorite braised prawns for lunch. Okay. As the doors closed, I couldn't help but glance at Sean's expression. Had he heard my last exchange with Philip? Judging by his expression, he probably hadn't. I let out a breath of relief, though mixed with a faint tinge of disappointment. The next morning, I found a message sent to me in the middle of the night. It was from an unknown number at 3 a.m. Tiffany, I'm sorry. Wish you happiness. I once thought my growing popularity would be nothing more than a fleeting moment. But surprisingly, more and more people started appreciating my artwork. Now, I could even say I've gained a bit of recognition. I was invited to hold my very first art exhibition. The excitement and nervousness were overwhelming, mixed with an almost dreamlike unease. I even felt a twinge of unworthiness. Sean, however, saw through my emotions effortlessly. He stayed by my side, helping me piece together the exhibition, watching me paint, and reassuring me. You deserve all of this, he said. You've always deserved it. His words smoothed the storm of anxiety in my chest. Together, we prepared every detail for the show. But I was so preoccupied, I didn't notice. When Sean wasn't busy comforting me, he was becoming quieter. The exhibition went as planned. Sean stayed close, never too far, his gentle gaze following me. I couldn't explain it. He had this calming presence, like a silent magic. Even without a word, just standing there, he made me feel at ease. The event was a success. But amidst the crowd, I spotted someone familiar, Philip. My heart sank as I frowned. What was he doing here? I braced for trouble, but he wore a mask and behaved like an ordinary visitor, quietly admiring every painting. He seemed more focused than anyone else. When it became clear he wasn't planning to stir up any drama, I let my guard down. Philip carefully viewed each piece and then left without a fuss. Before going, he even purchased 2 of my paintings for a substantial sum. From start to finish, he only glanced at me twice, never approaching or causing any trouble. The exhibition boosted my reputation a little in the local art scene. Everything seemed to be improving. Yet, I couldn't shake my growing concern for Sean. I started spending more time at his place, chatting with him, observing his mood. To my relief, Sean seemed to be doing better. He smiled often, his eyes as warm as ever. He took great care of my cat, Mimi, and quietly tidied up the mess I left behind. One evening, after a few drinks, we sat on the carpet, gazing at the night sky outside his window. Sean. Yeah? The alcohol gave me courage. Do you like me? I asked boldly. Sean chuckled softly, without hesitation. I do. His response was so natural, as if liking me was the most obvious thing in the world. My heart raced. I gripped my can nervously, then took the plunge. Then, let's be together? Sean went silent. 1 second. 2 seconds. Before I could sense something was off and turn to look, I realized he had fallen asleep, leaning against the wall. I couldn't help but laugh, feeling both amused and exasperated. All that nervousness for nothing. I gently took the empty can from his hand and looked at him under the moonlight. Tracing his features with my eyes, I didn't even know when I leaned closer. My heart pounded. I moved in to kiss him. Just then, his body slid slightly against the wall. My lips brushed his cheek instead. Sean woke up. Flustered, I felt my face heat up, and the alcohol seemed to evaporate. No rush, I thought. We'd have plenty of nights for confessions. The next day was one of those rare sunny mornings. I texted Sean, asking him to go to the park with me to sketch. He didn't reply. I went downstairs to his place and knocked, but there was no answer. So I let myself in. Thankfully, the apartment wasn't as gloomy as I feared. The heavy curtains were drawn back, windows open, everything spotless. Even the litter box was freshly cleaned. The air carried a faint jasmine fragrance I loved. Sean must have gone to the store. He always kept his phone on silent, so missing my message wasn't unusual. Relieved, I waited for him at his place. But hours passed, and he still hadn't returned. Calls went unanswered. 2 hours. 3. 4. I started to panic. I searched the nearby streets and eventually called the police. That evening, I got a call from the station. They'd found a body in the river. A man. The words river and body left my mind blank. I didn't even know how I got to the station. There, I saw Sean. He wore his usual white shirt. A rose tattoo adorned his left wrist. On Sean's private social media, there was a post he'd made the night before. It was visible only to himself. My moon has finally risen from the water, it read. She always belonged to the sky. I didn't shed a tear when I saw his lifeless body. But when I read those words, I broke down. He said his moon had returned to the sky. But that ordinary night, as I slept unaware, he had jumped into the water. That morning, when I saw his spotless home, I thought it was a sign he was getting better. But it was the calm before his final farewell. On an unremarkable day, under a serene sky, he tidied his home, refilled Mimi's bowl, and left. I only realized after he was gone how deeply his depression had taken hold. It wasn't just emotional turmoil, it was a physiological battle. Every day was torment for him. But I never knew. Sean hid it so well. He encouraged me, supported me, and helped me realize my dream. He cared for my cat, always wearing that gentle smile. I didn't know how much he was enduring. Not until he was gone. Back from the station, I locked myself in his apartment. I pulled the heavy curtains closed, surrounding myself in the darkness he once lived in. It felt as if he were still there. I clung to his phone, the warmth from the device fooling me into thinking Sean was alive. He hadn't taken it with him when he jumped. It was left in a drawer, on silent mode. Trembling, I opened his notes, hoping he'd left me something. There was only one entry. I hesitated for a long time before summoning the courage to open it. If you're reading this, then I owe you an apology, it began. I'm sorry for leaving without saying goodbye. I just couldn't hold on anymore. I can't forgive myself for my weakness, nor could I win against this illness. For me, leaving is a relief. But I don't want my death to become a burden for you. Your existence has already given me so much I never dared to dream of. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have survived that winter when my parents passed. I've been your fan for a long time, since the days you posted your artwork online, back when no one noticed you. I knew then that one day, the world would see you. And now they have. My moon has returned to the sky. And I'm headed there too. In some way, isn't that a reunion? He ended with. When you feel down, just look up at the sky. Day or night, the closest star or cloud to you will be me. He signed it, your friend, Sean. I read that note countless times, my hands trembling as I erased the word friend from the end. He wasn't just a friend. To me, Sean was the boy I loved. Sean didn't have many relatives. I personally arranged his funeral. Dressed in a black dress, I held his coffin as his widow. On the black and white photograph, Sean was still smiling gently. At the corner of his eye, a tiny beauty mark resembling a teardrop. So gentle. Throughout the funeral, I managed everything without shedding a single tear. Midway, Philip showed up uninvited. I didn't ask him to leave. There's an unspoken rule about funerals, invited or not, no one is turned away. His eyes were bloodshot as he watched me steady the coffin for Sean. When the ceremony ended, he approached me, hesitant to speak. In the end, he only managed to stammer, "My condolences." Then he left a bouquet of flowers for Sean and walked away. Against the light, his usually straight back seemed to crumble little by little. After Sean's death, I began receiving several parcels. They were all my paintings. Only then did I realize that during the days when I was an unknown artist, Sean had been quietly saving money from his living expenses to buy my works under other people's names. He left delivery addresses scattered across the country, only to have them eventually sent back to him. All those dreams of mine that had nowhere to take root, Sean had been quietly supporting them from behind the scenes. That fool. And then I stumbled upon Sean's social media account. It was called Waterwood. Scrolling through his past comments, I found that on nights when his illness was severe, when he was racked with insomnia and pain, he would still meticulously reply to criticisms of my work. Every negative comment or doubt aimed at me, he would counter them earnestly, one by one. He told them, "She's going to be the greatest artist. Her paintings contain the purest soul in the world." Sean had believed in me without reason. Perhaps it was these traces he left behind that made me feel as if he were still by my side. Until one afternoon. I was curled up in Sean's home, tidying his room until it was spotless. When I turned around, I saw Mimi, the cat, lying on Sean's favorite white shirt, gently nuzzling the fabric with its head. It let out soft meows, sounding almost like it was being coquettish. In that moment, a surge of grief hit me. Mimi didn't understand what it meant to say goodbye. It didn't know that the one who had pampered it, made it soft and content, would never come back. Never again. Such cruel words. I held Mimi in my arms, choking back tears as I asked, "Do you miss him too?" Meow. It let out a quiet cry, clearly despondent. These past few days, it had barely eaten or slept, spending its nights staring at the door. It was waiting for Sean. I gently stroked its fur, my tears falling silently. Let's miss him together. They say as long as someone remembers you, you're not truly gone. Mimi nuzzled its head against my hand. Meow. For half a month after Sean's death, I locked myself in his room and painted. The painting depicted a young man, gravely injured, running barefoot through a forest trail. His refined face was etched with pain and despair. Behind him, flames raged skyward. But behind him, the ethereal spirits of a middle-aged couple reached through the branches and undergrowth, steadying his every step. Their eyes brimmed with tears, but the gaze they cast upon him was filled with love and peace. The boy had a rose tattoo on his wrist, vivid and lifelike. Unexpectedly, this painting became a sensation. But tragically, Sean never got to see it. I titled it "The Moon Amidst the Flames." My moon fell amidst the flames. But I hope to piece together what was shattered of him. And let him return to the sky, whole. I was invited to an interview. From the audience, I noticed Philip. He was dressed inconspicuously, sitting quietly among the crowd, watching me. Our eyes met briefly. I quickly looked away. The host asked, "Is the boy in this painting the same as the one in your earlier work, The Boy and the Cat?" "Yes," I replied. She teased, "So, who is he to you?" The moment she posed the question, my mind wandered to that night. That night, emboldened by alcohol, I had stolen a kiss from Sean. In his sleep, his body had shifted slightly, and only much later did I realize what I had missed back then, the glimmer of tears at the corner of his eye. I snapped back to the present, smiling softly. "He's my boyfriend." The host, clearly armed with inside knowledge, teased, "We've heard that Mr. Philip is here today." As she spoke, the camera panned to Philip. He froze briefly, but didn't object. Instead, he looked at me, his eyes filled with a glimmer of hope. "It's not him," I said calmly. The host was taken aback. "What did you say?" I said, "I have nothing to do with Mr. Liu. My boyfriend's name is Sean. It's a pity he couldn't be here today, because he—" I pointed to the sky. My gaze landed on the nearest cloud. "Has gone up there." The host adjusted her tone, steering the topic back. "Then surely he's watching Miss Tiffany's interview from up there." I smiled. "He is." The host continued, "The road to success must have been tough. What kept you going?" "Many things," I answered calmly. "Dreams, passion. And every bit of love for my work, every word of praise in the comments. And—" My gaze swept the audience, pausing briefly on a pair of reddened eyes watching me with hope. I finished softly. "My boyfriend, Sean. It was he who quietly saved up to buy all my works when I was unknown. It was he who, in sleepless nights, defended me against every criticism. He told me," my voice broke, "even if he's no longer here, there would be countless Seans who would love my art. He said I deserved everything I wanted. And so, now I can confidently say, I do deserve it. Sean's love carried me. I deserve it all." As the interview ended, I looked up at the sky. I don't know if it was just my imagination, but the nearest cloud still seemed to be the same one from before. So close. Close enough to touch if I stood on tiptoe. "Sean. You see? All things in this world have their way of reuniting. Today, I met a cloud that felt so near. It felt like meeting you again." The end.